Okay, calling to order the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee on March 29th at 5:31 p.m. Can we start with a roll call?
Thank you, Chair. Okay, Chair Rob Wellman, present. Vice Chair Daniel Kanahele. Okay, Tova Callender. There you are. Everett Dowling. Okay. Lehuanani Huddleston Hapoka. Oh, there you are. Vernon Kalanikau. Randall Leach. Mike Moran. There you are. Cody Nemeth. Hi there. Wayne Nishiki. Okay. Kyoki Feltzer. He's excused. Okay, thank you. Jennifer Sullivan. Okay, and Brian Ward. Thank you.
Yeah, Kyoki had to attend training, so he couldn't come today. Velina mai na lalo ki kumiki olelo o kaiulo no ka papa olelo no Maui hama. Velina mai no e kapo e o ke ka ena olelo ki kalano o Maui. A me ka lehu o Maui ne. E ho pa kako I ke yahi ina I kama hana no ke alakau. A ho maka I ka ho ana ina I kama kulekele ahana a pau. Just a few housekeeping things. So we still have no ability to testify remotely, but current thinking is there will be an opportunity to do that on April 26th when we discuss land use in the North Kihei sub-area. And today we'll be working on finishing the transportation items, the transportation action items, and after that we'll go into reviewing all the policies and actions. And if we don't finish that today, then we'll continue that and finish it next time, and then we'll also go into prioritizing the actions. After that, we'll be ready to start working on land use, which is the next big section of the community plan work. So our two agenda items for today are one, to complete the transportation actions, and two, to review all of the policies and actions that we've decided so far.
Chair?
So, yes.
I guess it's a point of information. Once again, I have to announce that there was a gathering yesterday. I guess I have to put it up here. There was a event yesterday that it ended up 4 of our members attended, so there's 3 or more, and it was Tova, Vernon, Coco, and myself at the Whale Sanctuary to listen to a presentation on wetlands. We didn't discuss anything, and it didn't involve anything with CPAC, but there were 4 of us there. So I will close with that, and if any of the others want to state anything. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Jackie?
Thank you, Mike. You said Tova, Vernon, and who else?
Coco, or better known
okay.
as Cody.
Cody, okay. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
So I think we just don't get enough of seeing each other once a week. Okay, so with that, I will open up public testimony for those 2 items, the transportation actions and then the review part. If you want to testify, please approach the microphone and say your name and which agenda item you're going to speak on.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you for your volunteering all your time to do this very important work. I wanted to make the comments on 1.12. I agree it's a high priority, but it's a little vague. 1.13, I agree it's a high priority. I think that this could be paralleled up Pialani Highway, separated from the highway by a green buffer, and it should provide at a minimum bicycle and pedestrian access on a shaded path with a fence separating it from the highway all the way from Lapoa to Blackie's turnoff. And I agreed, and 1.14, I think it's a mid-priority because it's not an imminent safety issue. 1.15 is mid-priority. 1.16, I agree, I think is high priority because it could be done because it doesn't involve additional infrastructure. And 1.17, I agree, is mid-priority. And I agreed with Larry's comments and with Dick's comments that were the annotations. But additionally, I wanted to request a few other items. Is that okay for me to bring this up now? Okay. Number one, I believe that all new and redesigned intersections that trigger a signal should be roundabouts instead of traditional signalized intersections. Traffic flows better, they're shorter waits, there's shorter queues, and they have more than 30% more capacity than a regular signal. And they are also much greater safety for automobiles and for pedestrians. There are 90% fewer fatalities at roundabouts than at traditional signals. Number two, I think a hawk signal should be added to the high school roundabout, as was originally requested, so that students can cross there where cars are going 20 miles an hour. It's safer than crossing at Lipoa and Ohukai, which is the current plan, to let kids cross at those intersections, but disallow them from crossing at the roundabout where cars are going 20. And I see every day cars run the light at Lipoa going 50 miles an hour. So I think with 34 kids, it's not that big of a deal, but as this high school gets more, it should have a hawk pedestrian signal that can be monitored by a crossing guard if need be. But that's where the kids will be safe, up until they get the underpass or the overpass. The third item, I think that no new development should occur Mauka of Pilani Highway until there is an alternate route, Mauka of the Highway, that connects continuously to the Veterans Highway from Lipoa Street. I think that nothing should happen up there. We're already maxed out, and the highway already fails, so I don't think we should add anything till we have another exit. And I think it's very possible to do that through the area that is planned development from the top of Lipoa all the way across and out, connecting to the Veterans Highway, maybe connecting where the new DLNR industrial park is planned, something like that.
So I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up because you're past
Okay,
your 3
one more
minutes.
second. And I think that a frontage road similar to near Kamali'i School with multimodal functioning is ideal Mauka of Pialani Highway in order to reduce the stress on Pialani Highway and for safety. Just generally all the way down the highway. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from Mike?
Hi, Randy. Thank you
Mike.
for coming and addressing these very important points. First, could you explain what a hawk signal is? I'm afraid
Oh,
some
okay.
of our members may not know what that is.
A hawk signal is a pedestrian red and green light. Just like a regular light for cars, only it's for pedestrians only. So since there's no signal at the roundabout, it does require, in this instance, like other high schools that have roundabouts in front of them, to have a real signal that cars can be fully stopped for. The little blinking light is ineffective. You can't see it. It can be pushed at any moment. And the hawk signal, I think they use it up at Lipoa when they let the kids cross diagonally, and they stop traffic in all directions. So if you stop traffic at the roundabout in any one direction, well, it needs to be stopped across both lanes, coming and going. But the kids could, at the time of dismissal of school, the kids could gather, somebody could push the hawk signal, and then they're all allowed to cross. And it would be safe, because the cars are not speeding there. They can't speed there, which is the whole point of the roundabout. And the DOT determined that they didn't need the hawk signal, only I feel like the situation that has arisen, where there's a lack of safety for the kids right now, is because they did not add the hawk signal at the time they built the roundabout, especially if we get 100 kids or 200 kids.
Thank you, Randy. I think that's very helpful, and I certainly agree with you, and I hope the rest of our members too. And one follow-up, Chair. Randy, could you address if students or anybody cross the highway at either of those signalized intersections that you mentioned, how would they, assuming it's pedestrian or bicycle, how would they get to the high school then from those distant streets?
It would be extremely dangerous, and that's why I'm suggesting that there be a multimodal path set back from the highway that's shaded, that's attractive, that people want to use, and that's safe with a fence between the highway and that. And it should be continuous between access crossings.
Mahalo.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the testifier? Wayne?
I don't know who you are.
Oh, sorry.
Have there actually been any accidents at the roundabout that you know of?
I don't know about at the new roundabout, but I do know at the existing roundabout, the one that's by Safeway.
The new one.
I don't know yet about that one. But I know that at the Safeway, when it went from a four-way stop to a roundabout, there were greatly reduced the number of injuries at that intersection.
Wayne, I saw an accident 2 days ago, a moped accident 2 days ago.
Do you know how it occurred?
I don't, but when I was driving by, he was already down and the police were there, and I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Randy Wagner, and I'm a board member of KCA, and I'm an architect, and I'm the chair of the Design Review Committee. However, on this issue, I'm speaking for myself. But I have spoken to a lot of people about these issues. Thank you.
Any further questions for the testifier? Daniel?
Hi, Randy.
Hi, Daniel.
Just so I'm clear, you wanted the Hawk signal running north-south along Pi'ilani Highway?
Yes.
Okay.
Where the crosswalk is.
Yeah. Well, the roundabout, right? North-south.
Mm-hmm.
And just to be clear, the frontage road, are you imagining a frontage road in front of the high school?
Well, no, not necessarily in front of the high school, a frontage multimodal path. I mean, I don't know whether they can do that at this time with a road, but I think any of the North Malka development area and any other area that gets developed, I think that the way it is at Kamali'i, the separation between, there's the green area and then there's the slow-moving road. It allows school access pickup. It allows the people who live there to be not living right on the highway. And I also think that there shouldn't be commercialized development along the highway at all anymore. I think that the commercial that you see there now is extremely unattractive. And I don't think if they develop anything Malka that it should be remotely like that. Any commercial should be internalized and for that area and not be a draw from the highway.
Okay, thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the testifier? Thank you. Next testifier.
This is Larry Stevens again. Just to amplify Randy's comment and maybe provide one alternative, instead of putting that multimodal pathway right next to the existing highway, which is high traffic, consider putting it Malka of the high school and run it up there where there is no traffic, there is no possibility of injury or other untoward activities because it's well isolated from all traffic. We are kind of in the process of converting that highway from a high-speed road into a low-speed road as we put more and more traffic controls in place. And I think we can all imagine that the rest of the intersections are going to end up with traffic controls as well, which should bring speeds down, even though the attempts by the MPD to do that with speed limits has been unsuccessful. But I think that's the clear evolution of that road. But for now, it's still a high-speed highway. People drive 60 miles an hour all the time. And if we put this student corridor bicycle corridor or whatever on the other side of the high school, we eliminate all the problems with that, and it would be a big boon. Thank you.
Any questions for testifier? Thank you. Next testifier.
Good evening, CPAC members. My name is Rory Frampton. I'm here to just provide some clarifying testimony on the testimony I provided last time. And this centers around the action number 1.13, which I believe refers to what people call the Mauka bypass. I'd like to call it the Mauka north-south collector. But my first point of clarification is that in my testimony, I called it the South Maui Transportation Plan, but it's really the Kihei area, Kihei sub-area transportation plan, as correctly annotated by Rob's, or noted in Rob's annotations. Yeah, I think it's a little confusing that this is listed under the pedestrian facilities. As I understand it, it should be in the CIP section, and it would follow up to the policy 2.111. On the 2.110, which talks about this Mauka roadway corridor. And my testimony was really urging moving ahead with the study to identify the connection points, the north and south connection points. And that's what Randy was alluding to a little earlier. I think we need to develop consensus on that, and then we can move forward with implementation. Rob provided a figure that showed a bunch of potential options in his handout, and I'm sorry, I had it right here, but anyways, there's two that sort of go in the developed area above the highway, and that's what I would recommend. The state plan as well as the MRTP and the Kihei Mauka plan are very similar in that a large chunk of that north-south collector road would go through the urban area as opposed to totally bypassing all of it. I think, as I talked about last time, the idea of a bypass which totally above the highway from way down South Kihei to way up north is unrealistic given the state and federal transportation spending plans that they have now. They're just not doing those types of bypasses anymore. So I think with it being in the urban area, it can be coordinated with the developers, and it has a much more likely chance of being developed, and it would provide for connectivity within the developed areas that it's a concept that's really espoused by a lot of progressive thinking transportation planners. So I would urge that the route be within the urban growth boundary that's identified in the Maui Island Plan. That's the sum of my testimony. Any questions?
Thank you. Daniel?
Hi, Rory. Nice seeing you again.
Hi, Daniel.
So the name Mauka North-South Collector Road, I think it's the yellow line on the map that we have. Couple questions. First question is, do you agree, one of the testifiers said that there should be no development Mauka Pi'ilani Highway until, let's call it the North-South Collector Road is completed. Do you agree with that?
I can understand the concept. I think it's got to be done at some point. Whether or not you could do a first phase and provide relief on Pi'ilani Highway through intersection improvements and traffic signal synchronization and the early stages, I think we would want to see a detailed study to show that whether or not that could or could not be done. That's kind of an intuitive reaction, is that nothing can be done until we have a new connection. And I can understand why, because there's been a lot of, especially recently, a lot of congestion in Kihei without the improvements being made to Lapoa that are anticipated to happen soon, without the north-south collector road that's supposed to happen soon. So there is relief coming through a variety of intersection, traffic signal synchronization, and the north-south collector road, Makai north-south collector road. So I'd like to see what happens when those projects are implemented, and then so I'm not convinced that absolutely nothing could happen up Mauka, but I know not a lot can happen up there without another connection to Veterans Highway.
And my second question is, do you agree that the completion of the North-South Collector Road is the highest transportation priority for the South Maui region right now?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Other questions for Rory? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next testifier.
I think I testified on everything I wanted to last, but I did want to confirm Rory's concern and so many of the community on the North-South Collector Road, and connectivity in North Kihei, because we have got 4 or 5 potential developments coming up in that area. And if we're talking about safe communities for our existing residents, keep that in mind. I don't know how, but I'm sure you do. But the North-South Collector Road, I would stand, needs to be a priority. Thank you.
Any questions for the testifier? Thank you. Next testifier. Going once.
I think Lucienne's coming. Give her a second.
Going twice.
She's walking in from the parking lot.
Gone. Public testimony closed. Okay, so we are now going to work on completing the transportation action items. And we are at 1.12, which is develop and implement safe routes to school, safe routes for seniors, safe routes to transit, and safe routes to park projects throughout South Maui. Is there a motion? Everett?
I'll make the motion for discussion.
Is there a second? Second by Brian.
Can Lucienne give a testimony?
Everett?
Can anyone define safe routes? Is that a term that's defined in some document or?
Thank you, Everett. I'm reading from, Karen provided this information to me. Safe routes is an approach that promotes walking and bicycling through infrastructure improvements, enforcement, tools, safety education, and incentives to encourage walking and bicycling to school. Safe routes initiatives improve safety and levels of physical activity for students and can be implemented by a Department of Transportation, Metropolitan Planning Organization, local government, school district, or even a school.
How does that differ from complete streets?
My understanding is when there's funding available from, say, the state or the federal government, sometimes it's earmarked for one or the other, so it's really important for us to use the right term so that we can apply for the funding as appropriate. So there might be some overlap in terms of the definition, but yeah, by having this term here, we can apply for funding specifically for safe routes.
Thank you.
So they're both federal terms, safe routes and the complete streets?
My understanding is yes.
Thank you.
Chair?
Yes, Randall?
Jackie, how about safe routes for seniors? What exactly is that?
I'm not sure. I didn't prepare this, but I'm looking forward to those safe routes for seniors myself. So
It's not a federally accepted term. Sorry, Randall. Everett?
Jackie, would it accomplish the goal if we just said develop and implement safe routes throughout South Maui? Or do we have to include schools, seniors, transit, parks?
I can research that if there are specific funding opportunities for these different types. I'll look into that. But I know the term safe routes is the two important words, and that's why they're capitalized. But I'll see if I can find if there's specifics for these different types of safe routes.
Thanks.
Daniel?
How about identify I'm using Brian's, channeling Brian here. It's for, it's too vague, right? As far as safe routes in general. Maybe identify, develop, and implement safe routes. Where do we want them to be? Is that a little bit more specific?
That's a proposal. Is that accepted?
That's friendly motion, Everett.
Fine.
Okay, Brian, okay. Okay,
Okay.
so identify, develop, and implement. More discussion? Any objections? Okay, adopted 1.12 with that addition. At 1.13, this is the one about the Mauka bypass. So we have a number of comments and suggestions here. I'm just going to read the Planning Department's proposal. Identify a new multimodal transportation corridor through South Maui to Central Maui, Mauka of above Pi'ilani Highway. And my comment was not just identify, we actually need to design and implement it to get it done. And this, of course, is in the 1998 Kihei McKenna Community Plan already. And we have several comments here. So let's start with if someone can make a motion for one of the proposed texts.
Chair.
Discuss. Daniel?
I'm going to make a motion to go with your recommendation. I think that's from the Kihei McKenna Community Plan. Is that what you said? The blue one.
I don't remember if the exact words are from it, but
Well, anyway, that's my motion.
Yeah.
Design and implement a multimodal transportation corridor from South Maui, Mauka Pi'ilani Highway, connecting to Maui Veterans Highway. Oh, that's my motion.
Second?
second by Everett. So this does not commit to a particular route for that, and I don't think we necessarily need to do that. I agree with Rory's comments that at this point it doesn't make sense to do something like the Lahaina bypass way up and halfway up to Kula. It makes more sense to have one which is closer to potential new developments within the urban growth boundary. But the exact routing I don't think needs to be decided now because, among other reasons, because we don't know what's going to be built there. I do have one other opinion about that, though, and that is that it should not be a slow, meandering path. It should be something on the quality of the Liloa Hema, the southernmost stretch of the current north-south collector road, because it's going to be needed. Once we start developing up there, a fairly fast, even if it is only one lane in each direction, way to get in and out of that area. But like I said, I don't think that's necessary for us to be that specific about where it is. So, discussion? Brian?
So I would propose a friendly amendment to take into account Rory's prioritization of identifying. So the prioritization of identification, design, and implementation, and then the balance of what you put your motion forward.
You're just adding prioritize and
The identification.
and those the three words.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Everett? Yep. Okay, so can we get that on the...
Can you repeat that amendment again? 1.13.
So prioritize the identification, design, and implementation, and implement a multimodal transportation corridor from South Maui, Mauka of Pi'ilani, connecting to Maui Veterans Highway. So it's everything just in the beginning, put prioritize the identification.
Discussion? Vernon?
Hearing Rory bring up the 2110 CIP, which would fall under, is that something we may want to look at? I forgot what he.
Yeah, it's more of a CIP project
Yeah.
than a pedestrian
Yeah.
project. That's true.
You think that would be a smart move? That would move that over there? Not sure.
That means we have to change the numbering, though.
Okay. I just think, which one going to take more long for Bill? The route, yeah. Which one might be, I don't know.
Yeah, so it makes sense, I think, to move this to CIP rather than pedestrian facilities. Okay, so we see the new text on the screen. Any further discussion?
Do we have a desire of how far that's going to come down? Because obviously if we're connecting to the Veterans Highway, that's connection point up there, but do we have a desire to where it's going to be down in South Maui? Because they could stop at Lapoa, as an example, or they could... So do we want to define how far we want it to come down, I guess is the question.
I'd just leave it to the traffic engineers, let them figure it out.
Right, but they might build it not logically. Because it's not like we've never done that before. I guess I asked the question because if we, example, if they stop at Lapoa, you still have a whole entire section of South Maui that it's not connecting to. So I guess I just raised the question, do we want to make sure if we're looking at this for 20 years down the road, or if we're looking at shorter term, I would encourage us to look further down South Maui of where it potentially could go. At least even if we wanted to break it into phases, I think we should propose some kind of a connection point on the south side. That's my thought. Obviously, nobody else seems to think that.
Jennifer?
I agree with you, totally, Brian. I agree with you, but there has to be some planning done around the entire. I feel like if we say, oh, it goes to Kanani, and then there's a development, Mauka, of Kamali'i School, and then it should be going to Mapu or something. I don't know. I think leaving it generic like that, maybe we could put something in, something that accommodates the development and growth of the area. I don't know. But I do agree with you, you don't want it to stop at Lapoa and then we're stuck.
Yeah, the 2012 Maui Island Plan has it ending at Auhana Road, in other words, pretty much by the police station. Yeah, right by the police station.
Right. But I mean, there's still a whole bunch of development down here, potentially. So
Actually, I take that back. That was the MRTP proposal. The 2012 plan actually has it going all the way to Keonakai, but that was the one that goes way up Mauka.
Other thoughts?
I think it's a good point, and it's sort of what Rory's been saying too, is you've got to have that plan so we don't end out in a pickle in the future when we decide we actually do want to connect the whole thing. So what if we had language that said we prioritize the identification of the location of the roads serving all of South Maui, and then begin design and implementation? I mean, obviously that's going to be a subset. You don't begin the design and implementation for the whole thing. So if we feel like there's some sense of priority, but it's a priority to have the full length identified, that would be a way to add it into the language. You're looking at me funny.
Hey, Mike?
I think you're when you said all of South Maui, I think you're thinking of not including Malaya, correct?
Good point. I apologize for my non-specific language. So what would serve the community from Kihei to, Wailea is probably the realistic bounds. Plan the entirety of the routing and then begin design and implementation on the more northern portion because that's the priority for getting people out.
I would actually say that I think it's beyond Wailea. If you look at right now, all traffic going down to McKenna has to funnel through Wailea. So we, in essence, have a similar situation to Kihei. And if they continue the level of development in that area, we're really just recreating a very similar situation. So I think it would behoove us to think bigger picture and say, how far does it need to go? It doesn't necessarily need to get built out of the gate, but I think that there should be a vision to saying, what is that whole McKenna, the 670 property, what does that look like, at least from a general sense? And understand, does a road need to get down to that point? Because otherwise you're just going to funnel everything down to that currently one lane on the Pialani Highway. And we're just going to create another complete bottleneck problem for us in the community. Again, just my thoughts.
Mike?
I concur. I mean, if we're looking at what we want, and we're thinking of this as 20 years, and in reality, this plan may go on for 30 years. If by that time, perhaps 20 or 30 years, there won't be much of South Kihei Road, and I still don't really expect the North-South Collector Road will get much further than North Kihei. So that will leave one road, the Pialani, for all those folks that are further south. So I concur with what Brian is saying. It should extend, our concept of it anyhow, should extend as far as possible down through Wailea or to Wailea at least. Mahalo.
So
Sure.
Just an idea then you want to add. So it says through South Maui. So you want to say from Wailea through South Maui or something like that?
At least to Oprah's Road.
Pardon?
At least to Oprah's Road.
Oh, yeah.
And we can use our gate for temporary. Yeah, I mean, also you got to go past my meadows and go higher. So I'm sold more on as long we get to Kilohana or wherever, and then get as north as we can on towards Mokulele Highway. Had to try to outrate them. So I struggle with this. So the North-South Collector Road is going to happen. But it's probably going to be from Waipuilani to Kaunulu Road. At least that. There's no way, I don't think the rest of that North-South Collector Road is going to happen. So we give that 20 years, yeah. So that section of South Kihei Road from Malaya Surf, or where Kihei Canoe Club is at, and you picture that part of the highway, or South Kihei Road, all the way to Kaunulu Road. That can be gone in 15, 20 years. So more pressure on Kenoleo Road, my road, which ends at Oahu Street. So you got to turn left or you got to turn right. So that traffic is going to back up. But that's servicing the new North-South Collector Road, which is only that portion, yeah. Waipuilani, Kulani Hakoi, and Kaunulu. So that going to happen. That temporary remedy. So we got to look Mauka, spend a little more time, more money, because in 20 years, that Kenoleo Road, the challenge going to be with Kenoleo Road is condemning some of those parcels or buying it because it's so skinny. That's going to take time. So we gotta really think about North-South Collector Road or above Mauka. I think Mauka can happen quicker than we may think. Just wanted to mention that.
Sweet. Daniel?
Yeah, the north-south collector road goes to Canalillo by Vernon's house. You can sell banana bread. Maybe we just add South Maui to Central Mauka Papilani, connecting to Maui Veterans Highway and as far south as feasible. Without naming an endpoint, it leaves it open as far south as feasible. After to Maui Veterans Highway, and as far south as feasible.
Brian?
I'm fine with keeping it more open-ended since we don't know where it could potentially end. But I don't know if as feasible, I think delineates it enough. So I'm struggling with how to formulate the words on it. Because it's really more, I think, based on needs. So it's based on whatever is planned out there. So perchance if they put a park, it's going to be a different need versus if it's housing or something of that nature. So I think Lou has something to say, and I'll think about what to say on how to word it.
So, to support what you're saying, so maybe based on community need at that end, so the community will dictate the need. So rather, I mean, I like feasible because that was my kind of word last week, but based on community need.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm looking up the Kihei Sub-Area Transportation Plan, and the plan goals include safety, complete streets, system preservation and resiliency, regional capacity and mobility, local capacity and congestion, transit, economic vitality, cost, right-of-way, land use, natural environment, cultural resources, accessibility, and equity. So I think if we are following the recommendations of that plan, we should be planning for the best location of this road, if we can just refer to this transportation plan. And if we make a specific location, we don't want to be inconsistent with what these traffic recommendations are going to be, especially because these are in line with federal highway goals and planning and environmental linkages. Thank you.
So I don't think as feasible adds anything. It doesn't add any definition at all. It's like, so either we specify Kilahana Road, or we specify Wailea or something like that, or we just leave it open. Cody?
So I'm kind of struggling with this a little bit. Only because I kind of see like the floodgates opening and it just asking for more and more and more, and I really don't see where it ends. I know that we are dealing with growth and traffic issues, but for me, it's just kind of sad that there's so much happening, at one time, and for us who's for those of us who are trying to malama the little things that we have left on the Aina, I see so much impacts happening. And when do we talk about slowing a lot of these things down? Like, I know we're trying to prioritize development in these areas, but it just kind of seems like we're going to be sitting around the table discussing more and more and more growth. Looking on the map, I already noticed that we starting to impact our dry forests, even more so, even though they're already impacted. But you know, I just kind of see another Oahu coming down the line. And what are some of the things that we can do to implement it, you know, case by case, or try to slow down development in some of these high impact areas so that, you know, we can take the time to malama what we get and try to restore what we get. It just seems like there's so much happening that we don't have time for do what we're trying to do. And I wasn't really going to say anything because it's kind of out of my field, but being that I'm here, I feel like there's a reason for me to say what I'm saying. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, so yeah. So just so I'm just reading from the Kihei sub-area transportation plan. It says, build a Mauka bypass of Pi'ilani Highway from Mokulele Highway to approximately Kanani Road. So that's what it says. So if I don't know if anyone actually made a motion to add that, but if they're doing that, then that's kind of contradicts the discussion we've had so far about the extent of the road, and realign North Kihei Road to the new intersection. So one or the other, either we do it the way we discussed so far, or we do it the way that plan suggests, but we can't do both. Lehua?
If you want to take care of that first, and then I want to kind of say something what Cody was saying. Should we do that before we get further
Yes.
along?
So how did that get up there? Was that something you proposed, Everett? No? I think we should remove that unless someone is actually making a motion for that, as recommended by.
I thought Daniel moved and Everett seconded, and I was piecemealing discussion that I thought we had a couple of friendly amendments.
Daniel proposed to prioritize the identification. He didn't propose that part. So,
If you can read your motion, then I'll correct it.
Okay, as best I recall, I motioned for the original motion was design and implement a multimodal transportation corridor from South Maui, Pi'ilani Highway, connecting to Veterans Highway. Stop. And then that was seconded by Everett, and then Brian made a friendly amendment to add prioritize the identification, and the rest is the same. And I was fine with that. And I think that's all there was added to it. So there's an extra after, let's see.
yeah, there we go.
There we go, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Lehua?
So with what Cody had said, Cody, I totally agree and keep thinking about that as well. Is it possible to add something in there that says with an emphasis on cultural preservation and protection when we really start talking more about these things? But I think it's super important that we say that without taking up any more time. But that's what I would want to recommend, that we do have to have an emphasis on, you know, what Cody was talking about. And if we don't put something in there, then it may not happen. So that's my friendly amendment, is to put something in there that says with the emphasis on cultural protection, cultural preservation and protection in the areas.
Mike?
Yeah, I too wanted to address what Coco, what you were talking about. And my fear is that we see the development is happening. We're not getting the infrastructure. It's like, it doesn't make any difference. The development is going on whether we get the infrastructure or not. And I certainly agree with you. We sure don't want to become Oahu, and we certainly want to restrict development. But I don't think that we so much want to restrict the infrastructure, because we could use that infrastructure right now without building anything more. So that's how I'm looking at it. Not that I want any more development happening. I want, a safe way, a safe passage. We're going to lose one road close to the ocean, and people need a way out, especially, in a tragedy things, a fire or a storm or something. So that's my perspective on it. I certainly agree with what you're saying. I don't want that either, but I think that we're looking at infrastructure rather than more development. When we get further along in the plan, then we'll be looking at that more, is my understanding. So I just wanted to impart that point of view to you. Thank you.
Discussion? Wayne?
I just want to thank Cody, because I think those of you that had spoken earlier, obviously nothing's hit your heart. You are all selling, the 10 of you are all selling out Maui. Face the truth. You're going to see more development, and you're worried about putting on another highway. You're selling out Maui. Maui's for sale. Don't lie to yourself. People are listening and watching our action. You should be worried about Maui becoming another Honolulu. I don't think everyone of you that live here want to see another Honolulu. If you don't want to live here, move to Honolulu. Move to Honolulu. Go live with the rest of the people. You're selling out Maui, and you don't care. Thank you.
So because Cody didn't speak up, it doesn't mean that we don't feel like Cody. Okay? So you got to speak for yourself, no speak for us. Because the way he speak, I feel, yeah, but also got to look at what different angles that we have to deal with. So I don't like the highway, but we got to get on highway. Culturally, he right. We in alignment. We feel him, but because we not say nothing. So you got to talk about you. No talk about us. Because when I look at South Key here, yeah, you was involved, right? Look what happened today.
Cody?
Moving forward, I see like a lot of things, same issues happening in Oahu, right? Where growth happens, new roads happen, new development, and just on and on and on. What can we do differently to acknowledge growth, but, maintain those mea makamai, those gifts that we have. And it's sad to me when I see open space being developed like that, because that's opportunities for Aina, for us to do something with that becomes less and less possible. I've been in some of these areas above Pilani Highway. I've seen a lot of the dry agricultural features in these areas, and the possibilities of learning how to do those things again, sustainability, become less and less possible. I do understand everything everybody's saying. I was listening the whole last meeting, I never said nothing because I was just listening to what everybody was saying, which is all important. So in my mind, I started trying to like just kind of like think. But, you know, kind of like what Uncle was saying, I'm very into, because we're all thinking the same things, but we're also trying to live in this world as well, because there's a lot of other people who live in this world, not just us. But I think in everything we're doing, we just gotta think, how can we do this not like Oahu or Honolulu? How can we do this to restrict certain things and maintain the integrity of what South Maui has or what our dry forests have? We're entering into a new space. Yeah, we moving up the mountain towards our Vaokua, and you know, I just want to acknowledge that. You know, we're not just a mile up the road is a total different environment. You know, I've been just past Pilani Highway in Kamaole, and it's a completely different environment. So I just want to acknowledge that we're not just building roads, you're not just doing this and doing that. We're entering into a new space of Maui. And I just wanted to say that.
So I think Mike may captured the point, which is we're not talking about let's do new development. We're talking about development which has happened without the infrastructure required to support it. So we're in a bad state today. And besides the development that we already know about. There's Wailea 670 coming online. There's the other Wailea developments. There's MRTP. So there's going to be a whole bunch more people, a whole bunch more traffic without the infrastructure to support them. And that leads to a very dangerous situation. It's been bad already, you know, with when we had fires and things and flooding. And it's only going to get worse. So it's not about building infrastructure to get new development. It's getting infrastructure to catch up with the development that's already happened. That's Wayne.
I want to speak for the record. Being that Mr. Kalani Kau chose to challenge me, all during the last key community plan, I always voted against more development in Makena and Wailea, Mr. Vernon. You can check for the record. When I was a council person, check my vote. That was the reason why I voted against the Salt Maui Community Plan. I did not want to see more development. I never saw you at any meeting. Maybe you were old enough to vote. I never saw you at any meeting. Thank you.
CPAC members, please address the committees, the committee as a whole when you address. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on this proposal, which is up on the screen? Daniel?
Infrastructure, or the lack of it, especially transportation infrastructure, has been a pet peeve of mine for a long, long time. I've testified at county meetings that one day Pi'ilani Highway would become a parking lot, given what was coming down the pipeline. Many of us foresee that we're going to lose possibly important sections of the South Kihei Road. That puts a lot of pressure on Pi'ilani Highway. Right now, we don't have a complete north-south collector road. That's why the mayor said it's his #1 priority. If we lose Kihei Road, and then we have issues with the north-south completing all the segments of north-south collector road, then we're going to have to rely on Peabody Highway. That's a lot of people relying on the highway that during peak hours has, for many of its segments, has F level of service during peak hours. Who can predict the future, what the future is going to be like? I do see a need for, I'm not a big fan of adding more roads, Mauka, Pi'ilani Highway. But I see a need for ingress and egress out of Kihei. And we're very limited, we have very limited options to getting in and out of, South Maui. I'm almost, this is sort of like a hot potato. I almost feel like deferring this and sitting on it because of some of the discussion that's happened here. And I'm very close to withdrawing my motion and maybe coming back to this at another time. Let's all think about it. So that's a few of my thoughts.
Chair.
Yes.
So you see that, yeah, Daniel. So if we make that north-south collector road that the mayor said he's going to do, that's it. From Kaonu'ulu to Kenoleo to Iwapo, we don't know when that's going to get done. Can be another 10, 15 years. And then we still got to look how we're going to make the road go behind ABC store. That's going to go left and that's going to go right. So north-south collector road going to be just from Kaonu'ulu to Waipuilani. That's it. So that's where I stuck. So 15, 20 years, that part of South Kihei Road ain't going to be on the water. So they're going to put more pressure on Kenoleo Road and Pi'ilani Highway. So, I mean, we don't like on Mauka Road, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen. But we got to be smart how we're going to make that happen sooner. Maybe got to go CIP, I don't know. But if we're going to do Mauka, we got to come up with one idea that it's going to be faster than the north-south collector road, then that people have been waiting too long for that. That it's a, yeah, I mean, you like defer, I think that's okay.
So, yeah, you can withdraw your friendly amendment, but the motion was made by Everett, so you can't withdraw Everett's motion. So, oh, you made the original motion? Okay. Okay. Everett second, okay. So, are you withdrawing your motion?
Yeah, I think I'd like to defer it.
Is there anyone else who would make a motion on this? Is there anyone else who would like to make a motion to move forward with this 1.13? Everett, is there a second?
I move that we approve what's on the board now with the addition of, this is where I'm going to need some help, in a manner that's respectful to the cultural areas within the region and the native plants within the region. Within the right-of-way would probably be a better way to phrase it.
Leroy?
Could I state, rather than that the plants is important too, but get other areas? So if we can keep it a little bit broader in terms of the cultural preservation protection, I mean, of all areas. And I like that you said the plants, but there's more than just that. So it's not so encased. So if you could do maybe just say in all matters that involve cultural protection.
Okay. So in a manner that's respectful to
Shucks, all cultural areas. Maybe Cody, you like chime in?
So, I mean, for me, I like prioritize the identification. You know, identification, we identifying that there's an issue, yeah. Prioritize the identification design. Of I don't know about the implementation part, but of a multimodal transportation corridor through South Maui. I mean, I kind of stay kind of where Daniel is kind of going. I think it's almost kind of like we understand that there's an issue, there's a problem that needs to be addressed, but as we move forward, we'll know better how to address those things, those problems. It's kind of like where I'm leaning to. I know we're kind of in a crisis right now, but that's kind of where I'm at. Is because it's not only the cultural, it's just the aina, you know. I don't know how to explain it.
Mike?
I didn't hear anybody second Everett's motion, so I would second it so we can continue on.
Everett?
What if we keep what's on the board in a manner which minimizes the impact on
the aina?
And the aina, yeah. In other words, you can build a road. We need another way out. You can build a road, but there's a lot of land up there, and you can work the right of way in a way to have minimum impact on dry land forest and on cultural areas.
Agree with that second? Okay. Wayne?
Mr. Chairman, I realize that we don't have any person that knows Robert rules. Our Corporation Council is absent. I think you're going to be put up with a legal challenge that Daniel made a motion to defer, and Everett wants to continue on this conversation. Is there a motion by Daniel to defer? And who knows Robert's rules? We're operating on Robert's Rules of Order right now. Who's the expert to raise your right hand and correct me?
I'm not an expert, but with the Robert's Rules of Order, that if he made the motion and then he was going to second and then he's withdrawing his one, then if he wants to defer it, don't we all have to agree on the deferment? Shouldn't a vote be taken who would support it? And then if we say no, then we can continue with the motion and the second, and then still we can talk about it later. But like I said, I'm not an expert, but if anything, I think that's what has to happen. I could be wrong, but that's the closest I can get to it.
Well, if Daniel's withdrawn his motion, someone else can make a different motion. Someone else had a hand up?
No, just seeking clarification if Daniel deferred or if he withdrew. And I think you deferred, right?
Yeah, I wanted to defer my motion.
So I think withdrew. And you don't want to withdraw your motion.
I used the word defer like I deferred a motion from our last meeting. The intent was to maybe sit on this a while. I think there's a little bit of emotion about this one. Sometimes it's good to step back and maybe come back to it again. That was my intention for deferring my motion.
Okay, so we have your motion is deferred, but we have another motion on the table, and we have a second. So any further discussion about the Everett's motion, which is on the screen? But that's Daniel's motion, but this is a different motion. So Everett's making a new motion. So Daniel says defer his motion. He didn't say defer the proposal. That's a difference. So there's a different motion now.
That was what we were discussing, right? 1.13, the way it's up there. No, there's more language added to what I was proposing. So I was, just to be clear, I wanted to defer my earlier motion that was on the board, but now it's not the same up there because there's new language. To defer it, to come back and revisit it at another time. That was what I wanted to do.
So any further discussion about the motion, the current motion, 1.13? Okay, so I assume we need to take a vote on this since there are different opinions. So those in favor of 1.13 as on the screen, please raise your hand. Those in favor of 1.13 as on the screen, please raise your hand. And those against, please raise your hand. And those got it? And those abstaining, please raise your hand. Okay.
So that makes 4 yeses plus 1 abstention equals 5 and 6 noes.
Okay, so motion fails, six noes. Okay, moving on.
Chair, point of order.
Yes.
Would it be possible to take a break? Or we had a time in mind for taking a break?
Yes.
Going back to 1.12 regarding the safe routes, I did look that up and they are different. So I think we need to keep all those different safe routes for those different things in there. Thank you.
Well, I can say one thing, just real quick.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that building new roads is a big decision. Looking in the past at a lot of the new roads that have been built, there's been a lot of protest, a lot of there's a lot that goes into it. So I mean, I just don't want us to think that we're just being emotional. Maybe just being emotional for something that needs to happen, like the H3 in Oahu, they felt needed to happen. But that was fought tooth and nail with Hawaiians. So just thinking about new roads, it is a big decision.
Yeah, but I do want to point out that this is something that was the highest priority of the community associations in South Maui in 1992 when the CPAC for the Kia McKenna Community Plan started working on it. This was the Wailea, the Kihei, the Ma'alaya, they all said this is our highest priority is to build this particular road in 1992, and then it was finished in 1998. Now we built all these other things, and we do not have that road. This is not like, oh, we want a new road. This is the road that was never built. Just want to point that out. So 10-minute break. Okay, guys, sit down, please. We're going to start again. Okay, resuming at 6:55 p.m.
Chair, point of order.
Yes.
I wanted, as far as the rules for the meeting, if I made a motion to defer, isn't that something that would need to be voted on?
Yes, but that's not what you said. You said you wanted to defer your motion, not you made a motion to defer. Those are two different things.
My intention was to defer my motion. So my intention was to come back and revisit it. If I stated it incorrectly, then I'm sorry.
So if you're making a motion to defer the item, then we can bring that up to discussion. But I thought you said you were deferring your motion.
Okay, then I'm confused. As I just said, my intention was to defer what we're discussing about. I see, okay, defer the item. I see the difference now. Yeah, my intention was to defer the item.
Okay, that's
Now
how
that I understand the difference between the two.
That's how I understood it. So we don't need a vote on that.
Which means we could come back and revisit it, correct?
We could come back and revisit it, yes.
Okay, and that wouldn't require a vote from the members to defer the item?
It would require someone else make the motion. It could be you. Someone make the motion to discuss it again.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion to revisit.
Now?
To defer the item. Is that what you're asking me to do? I need some guidance here, that's what
Okay.
I'm asking.
Do you want to discuss it again now, or do you want to discuss it again later?
Discuss it at a later date.
Okay. So at a later time, you can make a motion to discuss it. As long as we have not decided that we're going to reject this item, then we can discuss it later.
All right.
Okay.
As long as everybody's clear, I don't know if everybody's confused. I was a little confused myself.
Okay. So we have not decided that we are rejecting this item altogether. We are saying that we're not going to discuss it now. So we may discuss it later.
Okay.
Someone else had something? Comment?
So Daniel had made that motion, Wayne had seconded, is that right? And then is everyone going to vote, or is everyone in agreement to that deferral?
So Daniel withdrew his motion. So I don't see why we need to keep talking about this. It doesn't make any sense to me. Okay. 1.14. Install pedestrian and bicycle wayfinding signage along greenway paths and sidewalk improvement areas that reflect the host culture, incorporating Olelo Hawaii, including maps, directional signs, moku signage, smartphones applications, and public art throughout South Maui. Is there a motion? Going once. Going twice. Motion by Lehua. Is there a second? Second by Everett. Okay, discussion? Brian?
I would propose, excuse me, a friendly amendment about identifying, and I'm throwing out words right now, so we can wordsmith in a second, but it's more about identifying where the appropriate places are. I think we talked about in a previous discussion, we didn't want signage, excuse me, all over the place. So it's like respectively where it should be, especially if we're designing and looking to put in a whole bunch of new bicycle pathways and things of that nature. We could become very heavy with signage. So I think it would be identifying the plans to then implement, so at least we have visibility as to what it's going to look like. Does that make sense? So I guess my friendly amendment would be to identify appropriate locations and install pedestrian, so that's the balance, but it's more the identification of that plan first.
Yep. Got that, Kavika?
Is it identifying the appropriate locations, or is it in consultation with the appropriate parties?
Yep. Consultation's probably a good thing to have in there.
Then I would recommend the consultation part at the end of the after South Maui.
Okay.
It would accomplish the same effect, but
Okay.
I think the emphasis is on ensuring the appropriate individuals or organization are involved for the authenticity of what is being done.
So
And
I
accuracy.
agree with that, but I guess, excuse me, as long as that role would encompass making sure there's not too much signage. It may be appropriate signage, but if it's every 3 feet, then it could be appropriate. It could be looking at. I mean, it could be all the right stuff, but if it's too much, it's too much. So as long as there's that balance that those individuals involved would kind of be the safeguard on that, then I'm okay with that. So I think the friendly amendment would be that it's as is, in conjunction or in consultation with which body?
I think what you were proposing works.
So go back to the beginning so that it's identified the appropriate locations and installation of pedestrian. Help me.
Identify through consultation.
Perfect. Who is that? We always work good together.
Discussion? Tova, and then I guess Vernon.
Not to be cynical, but what I'm struggling with this one is we have such a incomplete network. Like, I'm not sure what this would look like, but maybe that could be captured in the priorities, because I sure hope in 20 to 30 years we've got such an amazing network that this makes sense. But as someone who bikes, walks, and runs, I'm not understanding. So maybe it's a future priority, and that's okay, but it makes it less clear to me what the intention is, because our network is so inadequate.
Vernon.
So, Kavika, you can hear. So Kavika, the Public Works Guild, they have one template in action right now. So they're using the Waiwakea, Kamehameha Avenue, that whole area as a template, and on Pu'unene, because I was part of that, this very 1.14. So what they're doing, Public Works, or it's going to get installed pretty soon, is they took part of the Aupua signs for Wailuku, Aupua, and then in there they put bike path 1 mile to the shopping center, smartphone applications, all this information, it's built in this signage, one sign. You ever heard of that at Public Works? It should be installed pretty soon, so this is the exact action that is taking place right now. But they don't want to put signs all over the place, be like sign pollution. So what they did, they asked if they could take the Aupua sign, and we could use the mountain, the template in the background, and then put all these features in there. You heard about that one?
No, I haven't heard about that. And then I guess my question is, that's all depicted on the signage, or that's more of a QR code that leads you to more information?
We took the QR code only because, we took that off only because the sample was, cars would pull over. And then that's, so we took that off. But next meeting I can bring what the template looked like. I mean, we can move forward, whatever, but I'll show you guys what it looks like.
Laura?
So I like that idea, and I get what Tova is saying in terms of, and Vernon, with the sign pollution. So if we say identify through consultation, that would be with the County of Maui, because we couldn't move forward unless the county approved it, right? Is that correct? We cannot move forward with these kind of projects unless it's approved.
Yeah,
So the consultation would be from the people who would approve it, and we can put in something to say minimize sign pollution or something like that?
Whatever language you guys put in this one, it's just only going to complement it anyway. So Public Works going to handle this action. And then my suggestion was, or recommendation was, talk to those people in that area and utilizing, the same template that I use, but consultation, we can put that in.
That would suffice.
Because I'm the consultant anyway, so anyone can consult from the community.
So consult with County of Maui, to be specific? I mean, so what would you put in there to make sure that the consultation is being done by approved people, individuals, or whoever?
I think County of Maui is automatically included. Consultation is important because it affords and allows the general public or other organization means to be involved. It's more for others to be involved, not necessarily the county. We're already involved.
It's assigned to the county.
That's what I'm saying. So I know that. So do we have to put it in?
No, I mean, it's assigned to the county, so
Yeah.
this is consultation with others.
Yeah.
So like consultation with Vernon, if you want to put that in.
Yeah. So that's all I'm saying is that, yes, I understand, because I believe everything we're doing got to be approved by the county, so we're going to keep repeating it. But if we want to put with the emphasis on minimizing any type of sign pollution, just to make sure that, but again, if you're consulting, you go into the County of Maui, they will say, you can't just put it up wherever. So I'm comfortable knowing that the county would, support that, minimize the signs, so we can move forward.
Kalika?
Yeah, I think absent the amendment, then it's more at the county's discretion. But with that language, then at least we have some due diligence on our part to ensure that we just didn't do it arbitrarily.
No, that's why I said I like that it says that. And then knowing again that the county will do its part, so we're good with this one. It's inclusive, so.
Further discussion? Any objections? Oh, Randall?
Chair, just a clarification. What's the definition of public art that's used in this?
Non-private? Can be viewed by anyone? I think it just means in a public place, so that it's publicly viewable. It's not in a museum. Okay, any objections? Okay, adopted with the addition in the beginning there about identifying through consultation. Okay, we had some additional suggestions here. I just want to put those out there in case anyone wants to bring them up. A couple from Larry. One is provide pedestrian cycling path Mauka Pi'ilani from Ohukai to high school and Lipoa to high school. So if someone wants to make a motion, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll just move on. These underpass. Complete mapping of old plantation, kingdom, and military era roads for possible use for emergency evacuation routes. create and implement integrated traffic demand management strategies to support the more efficient use of existing transportation systems. All new, or this next one is more of a policy, all new or redesigned intersections that trigger a signal shall be roundabouts instead. Randall? Yeah. For the roundabouts?
Okay, just so 1.15.
Oh, we're not there yet.
So we are still on.
We're just looking over the other suggestions which have come in. So
Yeah. So what is that applicable to, the 1.15 or?
it's a new one. If someone makes a motion, it will be a new one.
So when you went to the back page, all the purple, whatever, those are all part of a new.
If someone makes a motion, then they'll become a new policy or action. If they don't make a motion, they won't.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm a little bit confused. Okay, so I withdraw my motion.
Mike?
Okay, I'll make that motion about the roundabouts.
So this is all new or redesigned intersections that trigger signals shall be roundabouts instead, as a policy, I would think.
Yes, that's my motion, please.
Is there a second? There isn't a second yet. I'm asking, is there a second? Second by Jennifer. Okay, discussion?
Yeah, I would
Mike?
just offer that all the input that Randy gave us of the reasons for roundabouts, all the safety issues, and it's my understanding that if not every state, most states already have that as a policy. That's the first consideration. Every time there's a new intersection, you would try for a roundabout. That would be the preferred, unless there's a reason not to do it. So I think that seeing that and seeing in other countries where they are removing signalized intersections and putting roundabouts, because they're all, by looking at the statistics showing that it's safer. All the other things are good, that it makes traffic move faster and continuous, and it's environmentally more effective because there's less pollution from the vehicles. The fact that it's safer, that you remove the possibility of the most dangerous type of collision, the T-bone, that if you have a collision in a roundabout, it cannot be a T-bone, which is the most deadly type, and the fact that speed is the reduction of speed is engineered, that people have to go slower, where we all know with signalized intersections.
So Mike, people can't hear you because you're not pointing the microphone
Sorry.
out.
So we know with signalized intersections, I think we all live here, we all drive here, we see people run red lights all the time. It's not somebody going through on a caution light. It's three cars running a red light. So I think, and that's where we have these disastrous types of collisions. Roundabouts do prevent that. So that's why I'm making this motion. Mahalo.
Brennan?
Okay, so KCA, if you guys can help me out. So the roundabout that we get now, you guys wanted that roundabout, right? The one that we have at Kulani Hako'i. You guys want it down, right? So is there a proposal to have another roundabout at Lipoa and Piikea?
Well, I would offer that when the Department of Education first hired a firm to do a safe study, and it went beyond that intersection and went to the whole area, that the firm that they hired, that was their recommendation, that all intersections along the Pialani Highway would be roundabouts. So that's where that concept originated from Dan Burton, who's I think an acknowledged expert. That was his report to the DOE. So that's where that concept originated, and for those same reasons that it would be. And one of the challenges happens with roundabouts. If you stick a roundabout at one intersection and then you box it in with signalized intersections around it, it defeats the purpose because the traffic can't keep flowing. As we see at the county's roundabout, where when traffic builds up at the other intersections around it, the light going into Safeway, then it backs the traffic up into the roundabout and it defeats the whole purpose of it. So that was the concept of building roundabouts as a unit. So that's where that concept came from. I can say in other places with the North-South Collector Road that Public Works, when they were looking at doing that, they had a roundabout at Kalaniakoi and a roundabout at Ka'onaulu. So that came from a county public works suggestion. I do believe ultimately they withdrew the one at Ka'onaulu, something about there wasn't sufficient space or something like that. But there have been many professionals, experts, that have used that concept of having a series of roundabouts being preferable than one roundabout and then one signalized intersection. Malo?
So yeah, there is proposal for North-South Collector Road where Waipuilani, Ka'onaulu, and Ka'onaulu intersection, Kulani Hako'i, and Waipuilani to have roundabouts, and then so up here on Pilani Highway. So is KCA okay when those recommendations are made? You know, because so if you're going to put more roundabouts up here, the traffic going to slow down. So I think the idea of whose ever vision or mission is to turn Pilani Highway into a boulevard with the idea of Mauka having one superhighway. So just gotta understand the whole picture because I saw recommendations for North-South Collector Road and Ka'onaulu South Kihei Road by the Hilton, another roundabout over there. I'm okay with roundabouts, but if we doing that on Pilani Highway, then that probably going to turn into a boulevard. So we gotta know these things. You know, we gotta know because the general public. So hard to get to meetings, yeah. You know, KCA they do their part, but hard for people to whatever, no can find them or get access. But when the roundabout came about, yeah, a lot of the community never like. You know, I was okay with it, but not the pedestrian crossing. I was even okay with just the traffic light because it was a lot cheaper and the boat just happens like that. And the traffic light works up here. You know, all the kids cross safely. Still weird, you know, but it's better than the roundabout. So if we're going to do roundabouts, then we do the roundabouts, but with the complete understanding that we're going to have one slower highway. If that's the direction, then I think like that, right? I don't like we be in conflict. That I'm thinking something else, and then association is thinking differently. So I kind of like be on the same page sometimes.
So I try to avoid rush time traffic, but I happened to be coming home at 8:30 into Kihei about a week ago on the highway, and it was slow entering Kihei. It was slow, but I found out that the traffic was flowing just fine all the way through the roundabout. Where it stopped and slowed up and really jammed up was Pi'ikea and Lipoa because the traffic lights. The purpose of roundabouts is to keep traffic flowing, and they work. I mean, it's working now. It's jammed up because of the intersections at Lipoa, and we can't make it a highway again. It's impossible. There are too many intersections already on that. What we can do is try and make the traffic flow. Mike?
Yeah, I would just say, because at the last KCA meeting that the mayor made that comment that when people were saying, why do we have the roundabout, he said, because KCA requested it. Well, there's quite a bit more to it than that. I mean, if we got everything we requested, it would be a different community. But when our concept was, when the LUC put in that condition that there had to be an overpass or an underpass, that's after that was in place. We accepted that as legal requirement. So therefore, the roundabout would not have pedestrians crossing in it. So it's kind of like leaving that aspect out, that when KCA suggested it, and it was a suggestion, we're not the law, and who decided to do it? Well, it's whoever makes those decisions. Of course, it's the State Department of Transportation. And the highways director initially had stated at the LUC meetings that he was opposed to a roundabout. He was opposed to roundabouts in general. But as those LUC meetings went on for years, he came back in later and said he was 100% in support of the roundabout, and that's what they were going to do because he was in charge and that's what was going to happen. It wasn't because KCA asked for it. He really wasn't very much interested in what we were asking for. He decided by doing research that it would be advantageous to put in the roundabout. Now, I don't know whether he considered the pedestrian crossing or not, but that's whose decision it was. We certainly suggested it and supported it with the legal requirement for the overpass or underpass. Once the two state agencies decided to go their own way and just ignore that and put pedestrians out on that highways to cross it, we did go back to state DOT, to what Randy mentioned about the hawk signal. And I made the phone call to DOT and said, well, if you're going to do this, aren't you going to why would you put in a rapid flashing yield signal? Why wouldn't you expecting pedestrians to be safe because you're telling drivers to yield? That means if the driver doesn't see anybody, he races through it. He doesn't have to slow down. And the answer was, well, we considered the hawk signal, but if that doesn't work, then we'll go to the hawk. Then we'll go to the hawk. And I'm like, well, it doesn't work. Does that mean if somebody gets killed, then you're going to go to it? But he said, well, that's our decision that we're going to use that RRFB signal, which of course is what they put in. So that's the full picture of KCA at that particular roundabout. Mahalo.
Go ahead, Brian.
Can I just have a point of clarification so that when we come to a vote, I understand what we're actually voting on? And the reason I ask is that in a previous discussion, we did put forth a policy to encourage future access points on the Pialani Highway to be roundabouts instead of T intersections, which we did vote on and was put in. We don't have a number yet. So is what Randy's proposing that this is all access roads where there's a T section, or is it on more the Pialani? I just want to understand clarification, because the way that's written, it would suggest that any light put in would then require a roundabout, which is a huge infrastructure cost of infrastructure, but also just land space. So to go to your point, it's like we'd be just eating up land left and right to put in roundabouts. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on what I'm voting on what the intent is. So if I could have that clarification, that'd be great.
Chair.
Well, my interpretation is, yes, at every intersection that you would consider a roundabout because it's safer. And it's where is the priority? Oh, it's going to cost more, but it's going to save lives. Well, how much are the lives worth? So to me, that's the issue. It's not the how many dollars. It's safety of human beings that is my priority.
I wasn't debating that we should or shouldn't have them. I just want to make sure I'm clear on what we're voting on to make sure that we understand what the vote is. So I agree you can't put a value on life, but I do question if every single intersection is required to have as a roundabout. So.
Jennifer?
Could we make a friendly amendment to add where feasible at the end of this? So, yeah, where feasible, right there at the end. Would that help, Brian?
Yeah, again, I'm not debating it. I just wanted to make sure if we were specifying every traffic intersection or if there was a specific kind of area. So
I agree with you.
If we put feasible, that's great.
Sometimes there's no land. I agree.
Right.
We got to be realistic where this is happening.
Right. And I don't want to condemn homes because they want to change an intersection.
Kavika?
Or you can take out B and put consider.
Say it again.
After shall, replace B with consider.
Okay, I'll change my friendly amendment to say what you said, yeah. Can you type it out and then I'll read it? Shall consider roundabouts instead. Perfect. That's my friendly amendment.
We did.
Yes, that's okay. I'll accept the friendly amendment.
Okay. Tova?
It sounds to me like it's a policy, because this would be considered when reviewed. So are we comfortable with moving that to the policy section?
Yes, that's what we started off with.
That's what we're going to do, yeah, okay.
Further discussion? Any objections? Okay, adopted with the consider. It's a policy. A hawk signal should be added immediately to the high school roundabout. Back again, as was originally requested, so students can cross there where cars are going at 20 miles per hour. It is safer than crossing at Lipoa Street in Oakai, where people run lights regularly at high speeds. So again, is there a motion? Otherwise, we'll move on. Daniel?
Yeah, I would make that motion just to talk about it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Okay, discussion.
So this would be an HDOT, wouldn't that be an HDOT decision? To put it's not a county road, it's a state highway. Should be added, okay, so it'd be more like we would ask as a community that HDOT put in this hawk signal. So I feel like we should do everything we possibly can to protect the kids. And this is an added protection, because even though you're slowing down to 20 miles per hour, there's a lot of cars going through there. So if it'll increase the safety margin for students trying to get to the high school, yeah, I think it's important that we do that.
Jennifer?
Point of clarification, maybe from Jackie. So this is an immediate action that we want. I totally agree with you, Daniel. This is something that is necessary, and I can't believe that you got shut down, Mike, when you made the call. But anyway, when is this plan going to be implemented? And by putting this in, is it even worth discussion right now? Like, this seems like it's an immediate concern, and then if this plan isn't implemented for another 2 years, is this pointless?
So in terms of adopting the South Maui updated community plan, it still has to finish this process, which may go on until June, and then the staff need time to prepare the document for Maui Planning Commission, which has 6 months if they don't ask for an extension, and then the county council has 1 year if they don't ask for an extension. So you are correct that it could easily take 2 years, if not longer. Thank you.
Everett?
I'm going to vote against it because I don't think it goes far enough. I think if we're going to be asking for improvements, I think we should ask for the overpass. I mean, if we really want to protect the kids, don't have them walk across Pialani Highway.
Daniel?
They are building the overpass. They have to build the overpass. It's a condition. Unless they amend the condition, unless they get an amendment from the Land Use Commission to amend it. I mean, that's always possible. But if they, I mean, all we can do is continue supporting the grade separated crossing. And so, you know, I guess anything we can do to protect kids going to and from school. Yeah. This is like, I mean, it's in there. If we put it in there, it'll be in there. Doesn't mean that community can't take action now out there, you guys out there in the community, to get, you know, a hawk signal, and HDOT to put a hawk signal, but it's like a small thing we can do. Maybe it'll be too little, too late, but it's something.
Mike?
Yeah, I certainly concur, Eric, that that's what really needs to be done. But I, for one, and from what I've heard from the community, many in the community have the feeling that the DOE totally ignored this for years. And what's to say that they will go ahead and do it? There's some supposition that once the school's open, they'll say, well, we don't have to do it now. We already opened the school. So I'm with Daniel, putting it in here, it's not asking a lot. And what happens if they never do that overpass or underpass? At least this would be better. It would be safer than the yellow blinking light. So that's why I'm in favor of it.
What if we were to amend it to say until such time as until there's an overpass? I mean, if our goal, if our best case is to have an overpass, I'm just worried if we put this in there, this is what we're going to get, unless we specifically put in the overpass. I know it's a condition, state land use condition, but it's been ignored already, and sure.
Maybe adding in that it's been approved by or recommended by whomever to kind of hold them accountable in writing. And so I think you just said, I mean, that maybe they could change their mind, the DOE, but you should put in what they stated that they're going to be, I could be wrong, if they're going to be committed to doing the overpass. But I like what Everett is saying as an interim solution, but put something in about what they said. Yeah. Daniel, sorry.
Brian
Sorry,
next,
Daniel.
Brian next, and then.
So holds whomever accountable for what they're saying in writing. Could mean nothing, but it could mean something.
Brian?
So I would agree with Jennifer's initial comments of that if this is an immediate action that we want, that it's not going to actually, no one's going to look at it for 2 years, potentially. So Daniel, I hear what you're saying, and I would lean towards wherever it's going, that if we're going to put, excuse me, get what you had. If we're going to put something in saying this is what we want, why put something in that's kind of a lower level, put in that we want the overpass, So that way, at a minimum, in the 2 years when hopefully things are getting implemented, that'll get implemented. I would have the same concern as Everett that if we put in the hawk sound or light, that they'll just default and say that's all we have to do. And I don't think that really fixes the problem. That doesn't mean that we don't, as a community, push to have that put in sooner than later. But I think putting the lower level of what it is that we desire for something that's probably not going to get addressed for 2 or 3 years, I think we'd be shortchanging ourselves. And hopefully the overpass is put in, and it's a moot point when the plan gets put in place, but at least we've put the infrastructure at a higher level versus just the light. My 2 cents.
So it seems to me that even with the overpass, there's still going to be some way to cross the roundabout. And then the question is, should that be a safe way or should it be an unsafe way? Why would we remove the hawk once the overpass is there? People will be crossing there.
I don't think anybody's suggesting that it's removed. What Everett and I were suggesting is that put in the higher level, you can do the light sooner than later, that's great, but if then they feel that that's all that they've done and they don't have to do any more, why would we not want to put the overpass in as our requirement? And in the short term, as a community, again, we can shoot for something faster.
But the proposal was until such time as the overpass is there. That was the amendment. Proposal. Everett?
I think it should, I don't think people should be crossing it. Once that overpass is there, I don't think people should be on the surface. I think fence it, block it, but I think you force people up and over in a safe route as opposed to crossing Pialani Highway. I mean, there's just a lot going on. You're coming around, you're looking for cars that are merging, you're turning, you've got cars beside you. I just don't think it's safe. I mean, I love it from moving traffic. I think it's terrific. But for pedestrians to be on the roadway trying to cross, I think it's way too dangerous. Block it off and force people to go use the overpass.
So that was a suggested amendment from Everett. So, Daniel?
I think whether not only high school students are going to cross the roundabout pedestrians, people are going to go back and forth. So it's not only for high school students, it's for everybody. I'm just going to leave it as it is without changing it. No friendly amendments except to vote it up or down.
For discussion? Okay, any objections to this 1.13a? Okay, we'll take a vote. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And those against, please raise your hand. And those abstaining? So we're missing some. Wayne abstained?
Abstaining counts as a yes vote.
Yes. Well, there should be 12 of us here.
Randall voted yes.
I'm going to, for the record, change my vote to
no. Okay, so that's 6 no's.
Okay, so it fails. Yes, it fails. Okay. Okay, next one is no new development should occur Maui.
Chair, point of order, please.
Yes.
What was the vote?
6 no's.
4 yes, no. That makes it 3 yeses and 1 abstention, which would be 4 yeses.
No, it's got to be more than that.
So the yeses I had
Saying,
I got 452.
it can't be 6-6 because I haven't voted and we're missing Kyoki. He abstained.
No's are Jen, Everett, Lahua, Vernon, Randall, Brian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 no's, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, and 2 abstentions. Cody and Wayne are abstaining. And then that adds up to 5 and 6, 11. You're 12. Kyoki's absent.
Right. So what is the vote then? 6-5?
So it's 5 yeses and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 no's.
Okay. Yeah, so it fails. 6-5. Okay. So next one is, if someone wants to pick this up, is no new development should occur Mauka of Pilani Highway until there's an alternate route, Mauka, the highway that connects continuously to the Veterans Highway from Lipoa Street for safe passage from Kihei without increasing traffic on Pilani Highway. The traffic situation in Kihei is already failing without additional development. No, these are new proposals. And next one is a frontage road similar to near Kamali'i School with multimodal functioning is ideal Mauka of Pilani Highway in order to reduce stress on Pilani Highway and for safety. So this is what Randy introduced in her testimony. I think we'll be getting back to this when we get to the North Kihei sub-area. 1.15, implement additional bus routes, stops, and transit services to increase public transit use as identified in the Maui Short Range Transit Plan. This would improve access to employment centers and community services like shopping, education, healthcare, and recreation, particularly for vulnerable communities and low to moderate income neighborhoods. Is there a motion? Motion by Jennifer. Is there a second? Second by Tova. Discussion. Any objections? Okay, fine, we have adopted 1.15 as proposed. 1.16, provide a frequent direct route public transportation from Kahului Airport to South Maui and hotels. These buses should have increased baggage allowances and storage to ensure rider safety. And there was a, let's see. Oh, it's the same. Okay, I don't know why Natalie is proposing the exact same text. Slightly different? Let's see, frequent. Oh, she's just swapping the order, that's right. I remember reading this between the direct route public transportation and direct public transportation route. So she's just swapping the order of 2 words there. Oh, to and from South Maui and hotels. Yeah, one way is probably not so good.
Okay, I'll move using Natalie's language.
Second by Jennifer. Okay, discussion. Everett?
I'm going to vote against it because I don't think it should be public transportation. I think the hotels or the resorts should provide it as opposed to the taxpayers.
Personally, I would like to see one like that for myself, but that would not be to hotels. That would just be to South Maui. I would take it if it was there. But I do agree that the hotels should provide direct transportation like some of them already do. Mike?
I agree with Everett's concept. I think they should, but how many years have those resorts been there and they haven't done a thing? So I don't think they're going to do it. So I would feel that better that the taxpayers pay for it because we're the ones that suffer through all the traffic. I don't think we can make the private entities do it. I wish they would, but I think this is a way to go. Thank you.
Daniel?
Yeah, it seems like it's not just for the hotels. It's to and from South Maui and hotels. So, I know a lot of people would probably use express bus to the airport in South Maui rather than driving and parking their cars. So I just wanted to point that out.
Jennifer?
Also, there's a ton of condos. And so if it's not just the hotels that are paying for it, then, or if we do make it private, then do the condos contribute as well and not just the hotels? So I think if we leave it the way it is, like you said, locals, Airbnb, whomever can use it.
Oh, Tova?
I wonder if there isn't a way to add in something that suggests it be budget neutral. Because I think the real point is not having necessarily the county budget bear the burden. And maybe budget neutral is too ambitious or I don't know, but something in there to imply the intent is to have this borne by users.
If you look a little further down, I actually do propose that. Tax on hotels that do not provide airport shuttles and use the revenue to provide an airport service.
Oh yeah, right. I forgot you added that ages ago. Yeah. Right, so something like that.
Mike?
Rob, so when your suggestion, was that to apply to 116 or that was a suggestion for another additional item? Your comment that says about tax on hotels that don't provide, that looks to me like, I thought that was, that you were suggesting that as an additional item, not part of 116.
They could be combined, but I think they make more sense to be separate. Just
thank you. Just for clarification.
One is about the county providing a bus access. The other one is about pushing the hotels to provide their own shuttles, and then if they don't want to do that, then they'll help subsidize the public option. Yes.
So when you use the public bus system, you have to pay though, right? So is this stating that we want to provide free services? Because it's not stating either. So is the assumption that it's free? Because if they're paying for it, then that's the contribution from the hotels if they are. Because
if we want it to be free, we should probably say free. Otherwise,
yeah. No, I don't want it to be free.
There's no assumption.
Yeah. But it's saying neither free or paid for. So that's really vague here. So we have to emphasize because usually the bus systems, you got to pay for them. So that would be the fair assumption, but we need to be very careful. So again, if it's going to be a charge for their services by the riders like the rest of the public system.
I think the intent is that this should be part of the public transportation system, but so it wouldn't be any different from any of the others, I don't think. Mike?
Yeah, I think we have to consider that all mass transit is subsidized anyway, so taxpayers are paying for it. The $2 that you pay for the bus doesn't cover the expense. And that's, as far as I can tell, that's mass transit everywhere. It's subsidized by the government for the good of the community. So I was looking at this as it would have a fare on it, but not that it would cover the expense, because it never does.
Yeah, and there are more and more communities actually which are experimenting right now with providing free buses because they find that the overall costs for the community are lower than because if they can get more people to ride the buses, then the costs for the community are lower. So I wouldn't want to rule that out, but I think it should follow the same rules as the rest of the public transportation. So if the county makes a different decision in the future, fine. More discussion? Okay. So we have the text as proposed by Natalie and a motion by Mike. And so that includes this to and from. It's a direct public transportation route to and from South Maui and hotels. To and from. Okay, there we go. Okay, any objections? Okay, adopted the motion with the proposed text by Natalie. 1.17, work with the South Maui community to identify locations where Maui bus shelters and park and rides are needed, and provide covered shelters, lighting, benches, trash receptacles, bike racks, and ADA compliant waiting areas at bus stops. Do we have a motion? Hi, Mike?
Okay, I'll say so moved.
Yeah. Is there a second? Second by Daniel. Okay, discussion? Tova?
Question. Does anyone remember if this topic was covered in the sub-area transportation plan and they already have a sense of ideal locations? Again, in the interest of not planning to plan, but actually implementing what we've already planned?
Hi, Mike?
Yeah, I honestly don't remember. I went to those meetings, but they were, sometimes there was months between the meeting. So it was kind of hard to keep up with what it was. But I do know that over the years, this has been discussed many times. At one time at KCA, a past president of KCA, George Rixey, had offered his architectural skills free to the county by designing examples of bus shelters. And the concept was, and as I recall, the county DOT accepted his offer, but then it was, they were deciding where, of course, where to put bus stops first, and then if you're going to put a bus stop, which one required a shelter, and it was all determined by how many people used it. if they didn't want to put a bus stop where only one person was going to get on. And of course, they didn't want to put a shelter in unless there were a sizable number of bus users who were going to be at that stop. So that's as much as I could offer on that. Thank you.
Brennan?
Was that Kihei sub area? Yeah, thanks.
Further discussion? Any objections?
Wait.
Oh, Brennan?
So you like talk some more about them? So Mike, I'm just trying to relive what you were making comments. So do you remember if, in our group and with DOT, if we identified locations?
No, I don't recall at that particular action by the county whether this item was discussed. I really don't remember. I think,
because
we could,
we were in and out on meetings. Yeah, we were good and we were out, and then we had to play catch up. Our meetings. It was like quick, year and a half, 2 years. We were in that discussions. So I don't remember. That's why I was asking.
No, I don't remember it
So maybe we
happening
should
there.
put this in.
That was Tova's question. Does anybody remember? And I was part of it, and you were part of it, but I don't remember specifically if that was addressed or not. I'm sure planning could find that document and see if it was in there, if that makes a difference. But I couldn't say, I don't recall whether it was or not. But I think this is a logical thing to do. So that's why I made that motion. Thank you.
So committee members, if you remember when we had that meeting that was at the Kihei Charter School, and the County Director of Transportation, Mark Takamori, came and spoke, and he explained the criteria for what he needs or what they need for bus stops. Those are the kind of things that go into deciding where those locations are going to be. And he might have had a handout, I'm not sure, it's in your binder, but I remember he did talk about all of those things that go into determining where bus stops are. So, I think even though, like as Mike was saying, maybe you want certain things, but if the ridership doesn't justify those things, then, they might not be able to put them in. But if you have your notes from that meeting, I think that was good information about this topic. Thank you.
Yeah, I have it in front of me, but I don't see anything specific about locations of bus stops or shelters. Yeah. It talks about locations for roundabouts or signals, but okay. Further discussion? No. Okay. Let's see back. Okay. Any objections? Okay. We adopted 1.17 as proposed. I did skip over one suggestion from Natalie. I just want to bring that up in case anyone wants to latch onto it, and that's incorporate short-term rental car services in South Maui. I'm not sure exactly who that's directed at. Doesn't seem like that's a county assignment. Daniel?
Short term, are those rental cars? I don't know. What are short-term rental car services? Rental car agencies?
That's what it sounds like.
There's like 6 in Kihei. So I'm not sure if that's what she's talking about. That I know there were about 6 that I'm aware of in South Maui, Kihei, and in the hotels, and I don't know.
I mean, I do have the sense that, I mean, I think a lot of us were disappointed that they built this huge rental car facility at the airport, because that just means that everyone is going to rent a car and drive to Wailea and maybe just leave their car there, instead of renting a car in Wailea and maybe driving around South Maui and not clogging up the roads. But that's done. So I'm not sure what the assignment here would be. I mean, it would be great if more people would, use cars locally or rent locally, but I don't know. Anyway, okay. Larry had a little thing here, electric buses. And then we had the one that I suggested, which would help subsidize the county shuttle and also encourage the hotels to provide airport shuttles. So tax on hotels that do not provide airport shuttles. Use the revenue to provide an airport service.
Chair, I believe that the county is planning to get electric buses and a hybrid, or I don't know about biodiesel, but I definitely think they should use biodiesel, because we have a place where they can get biodiesel. Transition to buses that run on renewable energy.
Can we do this one, tax on hotels first, and then do that one?
Oh, sorry. You're on the hotel. I thought you were on Larry's electric buses.
No, we can get there in just a minute. Okay. So is there a motion for this one, tax on hotels?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Tova. Okay, discussion.
Well, I would just say that we're just discussed prior that the hotels should be contributing something to help a situation that they're a big part of. I mean, their business is to bring visitors here and use public facilities. So putting a tax on them, if they're not doing something to address the problem. And I think I may have mentioned that before, that the Maui Coast Hotel has done that for years. They provided shuttle from the airport to their facility. And granted, they may be a bit different than the other resorts where a lot of their clientele are like airline crews use that, and but it certainly works. I mean, when they do that, that's one less car for those crews that come in, that they all use that shuttle, use a free shuttle. And then I don't work for the Maui Coast. I don't get anything back from them. But I think that they do a good community service. They also provide free bicycles. So they're helping in two ways. So that's an example of what can be done by a business who chooses to do so, where other more larger ones that are owned by international corporations don't seem to be doing things to help the community. So I think this is a reasonable proposal for us to include. Mahalo.
Hey, Brian.
Well, while I don't disagree with that, Mike, I would counter that to say that Airbnb is also one of our huge issues. Literally, I can almost guarantee you every Airbnb most likely has a car. I would argue that not every person at a hotel has a car. Many do. But if you're an Airbnb, you're kind of dependent on having a car. So how we would do it, I don't know, but if we're going to tax the hotels, then why wouldn't we want to tax the Airbnb people that are doing the exact same thing?
Well, I would just address it that, I mean, we can't do, it's a different issue about illegal short-term rentals, but we have a restriction on how many legal short-term rentals we can have in South Maui, and I believe the number is under 100. So if you compare that to how many visitors are staying in hotels, it's a massive different number. Now, the illegal thing is an illegal thing, but that's different.
Everett?
I think there are 3 hotels that provide shuttles, Maui Coast, Residence Inn, and the AC Hotel. I would suggest maybe we modify it to say provide a tax credit to those hotels that provide airport shuttles, because they're already taxed at the highest rate. So I think we provide the carrot and encourage hotels to provide the shuttles. So I would suggest provide a tax credit to those hotels that provide airport shuttles for their guests.
I would just ask Rob if you can. I mean, I made the motion, but it was based on your suggestion. So how do you feel about that?
So I think we should push them and use that money because I think we need the county bus as well. So this would make it a net zero kind of thing rather than being a cost. Jackie?
My comment is that we don't typically see tax policies in the community plans. We see more land use and these kind of different things. So this is kind of a unique one, and I don't know if this is the right place just because it's not normally in these community plans.
I think we can express our desire here, though. This is something that I think this is something that would make a difference for Maui. One of the resource papers, I don't remember which one it was for the plan, said that almost 50% of the traffic coming into Kihei from Mokulele Highway is from the airport. That's just incredible. It's like something like 48%. That's just an incredible number of rental cars. It's just mind-blowing. Mike?
Well, I would just say I don't think anybody would dispute that we're a unique group. So if we're doing something a little bit different, I think it's kind of expected that we would. Thank you.
Discussion? Objections? Okay, so take a vote. Okay, those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, and those against? And abstentions? And Lihua? So I found that, yeah, so motion passes. Do we need to take a break? Yes, okay, 5-minute break. Okay, everybody, find your seat. We're going to start again. Okay, resuming at 8:15 p.m. So again, just throwing this out there. Ensure sufficient public EV charging infrastructure to allow all South Maui residents and visitors to transition off of fossil fuel ground transportation. Moved by Brian. Is there a second? Second by Tova. Discussion? Any objections? Go ahead, Brian.
And I'm not sure if this is appropriate for us to do, but kind of going along with what we're talking about with taxes for the hotels, is there some kind of encouragement that we would look for the hotels to install EV. And maybe going more with Everett's concept of that they get a credit or something, but to start promoting the idea that the hotels should be taking an active role if we believe that part of their angle is that they are contributing to the tourism and cars and all that, kind of putting them on the hook to kind of harness that might be beneficial. But I don't know if it's a separate action or if it's something we should not even have in here. So I kind of defer to Jackie on that. I didn't put any words, but just more concept.
Brian, you have language?
I guess I was asking more if it would be something that we could include, or is it something, because obviously we'd be looking to impose something on the hotels and resorts. Is that something that we have the authority to kind of make that request, or?
Sorry, Brian, do you mean hotels providing the EV charging stations on their properties or paying for EV stations elsewhere on other properties?
No, on their property.
Well, there's already a HRS requirement that EV is required for, I think it's 100 public lots that are 100 spaces or more. So I would imagine most of the hotels already have charging stations if they have parking spaces of 100 or more.
Okay. Scratch it.
I mean, if you wanted to do something, you could create a county ordinance to make it stricter than HRS or something like that, or try to change the HRS. Those are some thoughts.
I actually have a proposal for that with the county. They're working on that, but on a more strict requirement, but based on the Hawaii Islands Bill 100, which is a more strict requirement for public lots. Further discussion? Any objections? Okay, I finally have adopted this, ensure sufficient EV charging infrastructure. Next one, Daniel, you had a comment on the renewable energy, buses, rather.
Which one are we talking about?
So you had a comment on this one, the next one, transition to buses that run on renewable energy.
Yeah, I support that. I'd like to make a motion. Transition to buses that run on renewable energy such as electric, hybrid, and biodiesel.
And Mike seconded. Okay. Discussion. Leroy?
Don't we already have that or started? Because I saw a bus today right in front of me. So do you want to say that, or do you want to just like encourage more buses? It literally was right in front of me today, so.
So the all the mayors have agreed to transition county vehicles off of gasoline by 2035, I think, and then all vehicles by 2045. So there is a goal. But, so I don't know. This would, I guess, just mean encouraging that. There is this is a goal already. Yes. Discussion. Any objections? Okay, I've adopted this additional transition to buses that run on renewable energy. The next one is kind of a long, I mean, again, this is not a motion, someone has to make a motion, but the next one, suggestion by Dick. He's identifying a specific requirement on Wailea Resort and McKenna Resort. And Wailea 670. So I'll just read it. In order to relieve multiple parking issues, Wailea Resort is required to establish an internal transit system for residents and tourists. It should be funded by the Wailea Homeowners Association or the Wailea Community Association as appropriate. When McKenna Resort begins building residential and tourist facilities mauka of the McKenna-Alanui Road, it should also provide an internal transportation system funded by property owners. When Honuaula, Wailea 670, has completed 300 residential units, it also must establish an internal transit system. A long-range policy would require these 3 large properties to integrate their separate systems into a comprehensive transit system for the southern portion of South Maui. It's a mouthful.
Thank you, Chair. So I was trying to research this requirement for Wailea Resort, and looking at the 1973 or so documents, I couldn't find that requirement. So if we could have, like, is it in a permit condition or some sort of agreement or something where those requirements are? And if it's already required, like say in a permit condition, then it doesn't need to be in this community plan. It can just be, you know, I mean, if it's required to be done by a permit, then, you know, it's not enforced by the community plan process. Even for these other ones, if we can see where this requirement is, that would be really helpful to, so we can, you know, make sure we're enforcing these permit conditions. Thank you.
I recall hearing that for the McKenna, but I don't remember hearing it for the Wailea ones, though. So again, if no one makes a motion, we can just leave this.
I mean, at least for these old documents, this was in the early 70s, and you know, I was just a little. We didn't have buses on Maui, so I can't even imagine that these were considered back in that time. So you know, thanks.
This is the McKenna Resort one that I remember. Brian?
Just one clarification. Wailea 670 is not an entity. Wailea is completely separate from any of those plans. The press continues to put Wailea and 670 together, but just for clarification purposes, it's not part of Wailea.
Yeah, but his wording is actually separates Wailea Resort from.
No, he calls
Wailea
it
670.
He says Wailea 6. I'm just saying that there's a misconception that it's called Wailea 670. 670 is not part of Wailea.
Okay. Okay, should we just move on? Okay, move on. That means, does anyone have anything to add to the transportation actions? Everett?
I've got one. I move to encourage the state and county to exempt multi-use paths, bikeways, sidewalks, complete streets infrastructure, and the north-south collector road from the requirement for an SMA permit or environmental assessment while maintaining the condition to comply with all other permit requirements, including those of the State Historic Preservation Division of DLNR.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that the SMA is, the rules are determined by the Hawaii Revised Statutes 205A and then administered by the counties. And the good news is that there is a bill right now at the state legislature to increase these development exclusions, and that includes sidewalks and these other types of things that Everett is suggesting. It doesn't address the EAs, and you know, because those would not be excluded from the definition of development, but at least the sidewalks and the bike paths would be if that bill passes. And so far it has passed both Senate and House, so it looks like it will be hopefully become part of the HRS 205A soon. Thank you.
What I'm really after is the north-south collector road. And that's the, and the sidewalks in North Kihei, those were my 2 main objectives in putting this in.
I know it failed in the legislation last year, but maybe this year it'll pass. Jennifer? Oh, seconding. Okay. Discussion? Yeah, I'm going to try and find that. But my recollection when reading that was that the intention is good, but it's kind of broad. It might give too much exemption from scrutiny. Okay, we got it on the screen. I guess with that with the maintaining the conditions at the end there, that I guess that contracts the broadness. Can you scroll up just a little bit so we can see the rest of it? Oh, can't see both, huh? There we go. Okay, discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Wayne.
Hey, Everett, the SMA zone is Piilani Highway, and any development is required to get an SMA permit by state law. Why are we trying to exempt this people?
Because I want to encourage the construction of multi-use paths, bikeways, sidewalks, complete streets, north-south collector road. It's in the Hawaii Sustainability Plan 2050. It's in a lot of our documentation. It's been in the community plan for years, but yet it hasn't been done. And I feel these two items are impediments to getting it done. And to me, these are the most important infrastructure items in South Maui. I think these are the things that can make the biggest difference for our community.
Vernon?
It took me a while for this sink in. So I'm assuming this bill that's probably going to get passed is probably looking at the bike paths and the sidewalks. Sidewalks, yeah. It's not too deep, right? So I just looking in theory that when they dig, that they're not going to dig too deep. That makes sense, the exemption, when it comes to bike paths and sidewalks. The theory is get this exemption so that, because we're not digging too much for footing. We're not going through the ground too deep, right?
I agree, yes. And that's why I'm saying that they still have to comply. Say, let's just look at north-south, consider the north-south collector road. I'm saying they still have to comply with the State Historic Preservation Division. So we're not exempting the project from going through SHPD for archaeological. We're not exempting it from anything related to EV. We're just trying to remove the cost and impediments of the SMA and EA process so that we can get these things built quicker.
And then we still be allowed to go through the SHPD process.
Has to.
Yeah,
Has
to. Okay.
Further discussion? Any objections? Okay, objection, okay. Yeah, okay, so we need a vote. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And those against? And Cody. And abstaining? Nobody abstaining? 9 yes, 9 against 2. Okay, fine, we have adopted that additional policy. Anything more on transportation? Daniel?
I wanted to go back to, let's see, on the other side of the page where it says, it's from Natalie complete mapping of old plantation kingdom military era roads for possible use for emergency evacuation routes. I think that might be useful information to have. I don't know if we already have it in the county, but it would be good to know where the those roads are, if they still exist. So I'd like to make a motion to adopt that one. Complete mapping of old plantation, kingdom, and military era roads for possible use for emergency evacuation routes. I don't know if it falls into this, it's under pedestrian facilities, but anyway, that's my motion.
Mike seconds. Discussion. Any objections?
We can add government roads in there, only because I'm thinking about Honolulu.
Oh, okay.
Honolulu get plenty government roads that stay closed and should be open. If we put them in, you never know, yeah. At least stay in.
Daniel?
You want to say Honolulu?
No, I just thinking of Honolulu because still get those government roads still closed. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then maybe we just put government roads in general to the list, yeah.
Okay.
So add in government. Yep. More discussion? Any objections? Okay, we adopted this complete mapping suggestion from Natalie. Any more transportation items? Okay, we have completed our first pass through all the policies and all the actions. I think we need. Like what?
Right now. But I think it's important that we review 1.13 and the decision that was made, because I don't believe that it was done properly in terms how we did it. So I think it's really important that we review it one more time. That's just my thought process.
So someone needs to make a motion in that case that we reopen it.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to reopen 1.13.
Yes, and Jennifer seconds. Okay, discussion.
Okay, so I'll start off with the reason is, again, and it's going to repeat, but I don't think it was done properly in terms of, I think it was Everett making the motion and Daniel seconding the motion. So I think it would be better if he rescinded his motion, and then a second motion is then again needed to support the initial motion by Everett, which was done by, I don't know who did that one, Mike, yeah. No, the second time. Yeah, it was by Mike, yeah. So Mike's seconded, and then we had a discussion, and then we somehow entertained the deferring it, but I don't think that was applicable to that. Then we took a vote, and then it failed. And so I just want to make sure that everybody's okay with this one particular item, that it's failed. So we're going to move forward because if I remember, Jackie, you stated that it was written into something and it's no longer there. Yeah, it was something to do with transportation policy or something, but it's no longer there. It was there. So I just say make sure we're all on the same page and that we're okay with that, but I don't think it was done properly. So in regards to Robert's Rule of Order, again, I just took a shot at it, but I think we have to rescind. You have to do it properly. I don't know. You got to read back what was written to make sure that we are indeed doing it correctly. So that's a long motion, yeah. I don't think I stated my motion or clarified it, but I'd like us to revisit the process that we took to make or to take the vote and it failed, just to make sure it was done properly. But again, I wanted to ask Jackie, what was that verbiage that was used? Something about transportation study or it was like written, does anybody remember? It was up there, and then we kind of didn't know where it came from. So Kavika, yeah.
I was trying to follow along the discussion, and I had added in I think Rory had clarified that it wasn't the South Maui Transportation Plan, it was the, where's my paper? It was the Kihei Sub-Area Transportation Plan, but then I guess nobody actually read that into the motion, so I deleted it according to what Daniel had agreed to, which was a period right after highway. And then he wanted to defer that motion, and I believe Everett revived this particular action and added everything that you see up until Aina. That was seconded by Mike, and it failed. I think what it sounds like is you want a motion to revisit this particular action at a future meeting.
Yes, I think it's important that we do. So that's my motion. What are the implications of it? I mean, leaving it as failed, moving forward.
I don't get what you're asking for. I mean, either we have a motion, we discuss and adopt it, or we don't. Or we could reject it. We need to do one of those three things.
No, the fourth option, you can defer it to another time. We're not.
That's what we did.
No, I don't
Yes.
think that's what we did, because he asked to defer his motion,
Yes.
not the motion. So you did exactly that.
Right.
So, but
Right.
we didn't defer the motion to.
We did not, because
to
he wants
another-
to revisit it. So we did not defer the motion. We deferred
Correct.
the discussion.
Yes, so I wanted to make sure that what Daniel was saying, or trying to say, Daniel, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but you wanted to defer the topic to discuss at a later time, is that correct?
That's what we decided. Yes, that's what we
Okay.
decided.
So then why do we have a failed motion then?
It's not failed. It was deferred. The
It says
discussion was
motion
deferred.
failed.
So
The
Everett's
motion that Everett had made that was seconded by Mike did fail. You took it to vote and it failed.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So Everett's motion was to revise the writing, and we voted on that, and that was a failed vote. But it's not, that 1.13 is still up for discussion at another meeting.
Is it?
Is that
If
correct?
the motion fails, is it up? Because that's how you defer a motion to be, defer an item, right? So if a motion fails, you can pick it up anytime. Is that what we want to do?
Well, Daniel said that he did not want to dismiss the topic. He wanted to defer it. As he wants to come back to it later. So I think that was my understanding of his intention. It was not to reject the topic.
Yeah, but we did reject it. That's what I'm saying. We did reject it. That's how the motion failed. We're not revisiting it. I don't remember voting on revisiting, which I want to do, but I want to make sure that it's written correctly in the minutes to reflect that. So I don't know if anybody has any other opinions on the matter, but I don't think we did it properly.
I'm not sure if we did it properly, but my understanding was that 1.13 is not finalized. We were coming back to it, but what confused me is now you said, okay, we're done. And so we're not done because we still have this item to address.
But not right now, because Daniel wanted to come back to it later.
Okay, maybe when you can specify when we'll come back to it, and that would help us.
So I think to maybe clarify is, I think we're kind of going in a bit of circles for the right reasons, but it's my understanding that we will be going through every single one of these actions that we want to. We could say, hey, we want to pass everything as is, but if next week we're going through this section, anybody could open up and say, we want to discuss 1.13 again. Just like you could pick up and say, I want to discuss 1.12 again. So just because a motion had been made or not made, we still have the ability in the coming week or so to go through any of these that we want to go through, correct? So I don't think we need to have a motion to discuss it again. All we need to do is make sure that we earmark it on all of our calendars, so to speak, that we do want to readdress it.
Okay, and not trying to rush things, but I just wanted to make sure that we're just keep adding on more items. And then, so I didn't know if we had time to discuss it and so forth, but I just wanted to make sure that I don't think can one person just defer and then we just defer it? Or it has to be voted upon to defer?
You should vote,
So
technically.
if someone made a motion, that person can withdraw their motion. They have the right to do that. Someone else can then make the same motion, but if they withdrew the motion, then they're no longer making that motion. Now, there have been cases where we've had a motion to reject the text, and we've done that, and we're not coming back to that. I mean, someone could propose new text, but that text is gone. I mean, we made a decision to reject it. That was not the case here, because Daniel said he wanted to come back to it. He made the motion, he wanted to defer the topic, come back to it. So we can come back to that. But he did not want to come back to it now, so.
I'm sorry, I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one who's confused, but I just don't think it was done properly, so you can put that on.
The only question is, are we going to come back to this or not? I mean, is there a possibility to come back to it or not? And I think, as my understanding was, that Daniel did want to be able to come back to this in the future, so we have not rejected it. Is that correct? Okay, Daniel's nodding. So I think that's the case. Jennifer?
Just to clarify, you're not questioning what we're actually doing, you're questioning the process of how it happened. Is that right?
Questioning the process, but to support this. I just don't want us to forget about it, because we're going to keep doing this. Then we're not, and again, not rushing anything, but I just want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. So that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay.
Okay, let's move on. So we have, so we don't have hoppers, but we have done our first pass through all the action and policies. So let's start on the review. So we have received suggestions for review items from Mike, from Everett, and from myself. I don't think we received proposals from anybody else. So starting with his policies, goal 1.
Chair,
Yes.
I would like to amend the goal itself. The goal is a complete, balanced, and connected transportation network. I would like to amend it to read a complete, balanced, efficient, and connected transportation network. Just add the word efficient. And, well, that's my motion.
Say it again. What was the word you added?
Complete balance, a complete balance, efficient, and connected transportation network. It's just one word, efficient. And the way that I see efficient within this goal is how quickly and predictably we can move around in our area. So.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Mike. Discussion. Any objections? Okay, added efficient to the goal. Okay, so the first item that there was a request to reopen was, or to review, is 2.1.11 policy.
Can I jump in, Chair, first? Because I have a 2.1.4 suggestion.
Okay, the request was that you submit those in advance so people could think about them. But,
I understand, but.
Okay, go ahead.
It's very simple. It's just adding the words "and implement," so it's establish and implement safe routes interconnecting South Maui.
Is there a second? Second by Jennifer. Okay. Discussion.
Sorry, could you please repeat that one more time, Brian?
Establish and implement safe routes.
Correct. 2.1.4.
Any objections?
I don't think Kavika has it up there.
Yeah, one more time for me.
2.1.4, establish and implement safe routes. Any objections? Okay, adding and implement to 2.1.4. So 2.1.11. So a lot of, as I said last time, a lot of the discussion around North-South Collector Road has legacy from the 1998 community plan, where it was only intended for connection within Kihei. There's no discussion at all, no intent to have it provide an ingress or an egress. But now we need that. We know we need that. So that's kind of what we discussed last time.
So Rob, as I'm reading, you have a suggested language to read for 2.1.11, require the completion of the North-South Collector Road and adjacent multi-use paths that will improve travel through Kihei and provide access to additional routes for emergency ingress and egress.
Yes. Yeah, the bolded text, yes.
Yeah, so I move that. I'd like to move to adopt that language for 2.1.11.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Everett. Discussion?
Quick question.
Yep.
Are we removing where feasible?
That's kind of what we decided last time.
Yes.
We did adopt an action last time which said that. Any objections? Okay, we adopted the amended language. 2.1.13. Yeah, I just don't understand what this reference is. Support the wetland studies. We have a commissioned wetland study, which is it's ordered by the new wetlands ordinance we just adopted. Yeah, so I'm not sure what that reference is. Support the wetland studies. So I'm just proposing that we remove that part. Mike?
Yeah, I'll say so moved unless somebody has other wetland studies that they think should be included, but I agree with you. We have that one that was just passed by the council last year. So moved, using Rob's language.
Is there a second? Pardon? Daniel seconds, okay. Discussion?
I
not to complicate matters, but if I'm recalling this conversation correctly, those wetland studies were to provide the information needed to know whether or not the incorporation of greenways and multi-use paths were appropriate within those wetlands. So it was specific to the task. I mean, I agree the wording is clunky, but Coco, that was something that you brought up. So if that's not ringing the same way, I'm not holding to it. I'm just reminding us of how we got that language about studies.
Cody?
I think that the wetland studies that I was referring to probably was the mapping of the wetlands. So maybe.
Which will be done way before this plan is adopted. I mean, it has to be done by the beginning of October this year. Vernon?
So the wetland studies, anybody know where we're at on that? It's going to be a while, yeah? Oh, okay. See, I knew something would come
So
up.
the notice to proceed has already been issued to the consultant, so we're starting on it. So it's going to be done
Okay.
before you know it.
I mean, the ordinance says 365 days from when the ordinance was in effect, so towards the end of this year. Vernon?
Managing the contracts, I know.
Discussion? Any objections? Okay, so just removing that, the first part there, support the wetland studies. Okay, and then I put in Everett's policy here, but we already discussed that. And then I just put in just because otherwise the numbering doesn't make sense. It says like, it says like 2.1.1, and it says 2.1.4, so kind of wonder why is that the case. It's because there are a number of policies that were initially proposed, but then on the very first meeting that we had, the very first transportation meeting that we had, the planning department asked to remove those, so they were removed. So these are all removed: 2.1.2, 2.1.3, 2.1.8, 2.1.12, and 2.1.16. And the justification for removing them was that they were more actions than policies, so they were kind of reformulated, and some of them we have discussed as actions. Skipping down to 1.03b, I think this is totally misrepresenting what was discussed, because when we were discussing this, we felt that the level of service for our roads is inadequate, and this says that they are adequate. It says that the peak level of service is D or better for urban centers and corridors, and C or better everywhere else, according to the Hawaii Department of Transportation, and that's not true. The Hawaii Department of Transportation says that Pilani Highway, for example, is level of service F, and also Veterans Highways is level F. So I think the intention, what was actually adopted, was that we want it to be level D, we want it to be level C, and so I think it should say the level of service is to be D or better, rather than it is level D or better. Daniel?
Yeah, Chair. When we approved this, I did feel a little funny kind about the language, but I figure we come back and revisit it. And thank you for cleaning it up, because that reflects more of the intention I had when I proposed this this policy. So it's I'm happy to make a motion to adopt this new language, develop and implement Yeah. Develop and implement a program to monitor peak level of service. During peak traffic hours, the peak level of service is to be D or better for urban centers and corridors, and C or better everywhere else in accordance with the Hawaii Department of Transportation level of service definition. So that's my motion.
Is there a second? Second by Brian. It's a small change, but it has a big difference in meaning. Discussion? Funny how much a couple words difference can make. Any objections? Oh, Kavika?
Sorry, Daniel, just right after transportation or the ending?
Sorry.
So the proposed is the bolded text.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any objections? Okay, we have adopted the change. So 1.03c, this was actually deferred on March 22nd.
Yeah, that was me.
Right.
Me again, Mr. Deferral. Yeah, I think I'd like to revisit this language. I think the question, let's see, require adequate interregional highway capacity, including the widening of Pi'ilani, of all Pi'ilani Highway to 4 lanes prior to or concurrent with the construction of major projects as determined, with the construction of major projects. So that was the issue, major, what does that mean, right? Major projects. And so as far as, I think major has a kind of a natural meaning in the English language, but it's not precise. You know, there's a scale involved, right? What do we mean by major development? And so there seems to be a need for a more precise definition. So I asked planning if there is a definition for major projects. So I went to the Maui Code to see if I could find a definition, and I couldn't find one in there. So unfortunately, there is no planning policy to define major development. So does that mean it's left to the planners to decide whether a planning application represents a major development? In any case, I'm going to make a motion to adopt the language, and hopefully we'll get a second.
Second by Jennifer. I mean, it does say that major projects as determined by Hawaii Department of Transportation and Department of Public Works. So after discussion,
Combination of the two, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we decided back then. Okay, discussion. Any objections? Daniel.
Yeah, so I think there is a question about what is major projects tied to traffic impacts, or how many cars? And so anyway, I looked up the definition of major developments in other principalities, which is in their code, and more often than not, it's attached to units, built units. how many units are built, right? And so we're talking about the widening of the section of the highway from Kilohana to Waileike, right? It's been widened all the way to that point, but this particular action hasn't been completed because it hasn't been widened to Waileike. So I think there should be a policy that defines what major development means in this context. I think that's maybe something that needs to be defined. And in some ways it is already defined because, for example, I don't know, maybe we're already past 9, Rob, so maybe I don't want to belabor the point, but I'm just trying to, I mean, if we leave it as is without being more precise, then maybe it doesn't mean that much because this was the adopted language in the 1998 plan. And from 1998 till today, there have been a lot of things built south of Kilohana, a lot of things. And this language didn't prevent that from happening. I'm just wondering why. So, I don't know. I'm happy to pick this up at our next meeting, start at this point rather than voting on it. Because I think maybe we should look at it, defining what major development is in this particular instance. Are we talking about X number of units, 100 units, 150 units? And for example, the Wailea Resort, there is a trigger of 150 units for them to implement their fair share of Piilani improvements. And so they've said 150, that's the trigger, you pass 150 units, you're going to have to do improvements on Piilani. And they already have a memorandum of agreement for that. So I want to get some more precise language in here so that it does actually mean something, because it hasn't meant a lot since 1998. And I think part of the problem is a lack of precision in what major development means. So
are you suggesting that we resume this topic next time?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Due to the hour, and I think it's time to adjourn the meeting.
Right. So we have a motion and a second, but we're going to continue the discussion at the next meeting. And we're not going to recess this meeting because I think that we can get through the rest of them and begin on the prioritization next time. There are not a whole lot of actually changes proposed for the review.
So I just want to give you an update on the time extension request. We did submit that, and the county council will take it up at their meeting on April 11th. April is like almost entirely budget meetings, but there's one meeting that's a council meeting on the 11th and one on the 28th. So thankfully, we're going to be in on the 11th because we hit 6 months on the 17th. So in the nick of time, hopefully we'll get our extension. And we may not need the full 3 months, but at least we have that as a fallback. I think the schedule puts us to maybe June or so to be completed if we can stay on track. Thank you.
Okay, so next time we'll continue with this, and then hopefully we will finish it in time to work on the prioritization as well. Closing this meeting at 9:05 p.m.